Welcome to Follow Your Curiosity, where we explore the inner workings of the creative process. I'm your host, Nancy Norbeck. Hey there. Normally, this would be an interview week, and normally, or at least for the last 2 years, before the holidays, I've usually done a replay of one of my favorite episodes from the previous year. And I was going to do that this year. I will admit I was having a little bit of trouble deciding between a few, which may have influenced my decision to do this instead. But mostly, I decided to do an extra pep talk this year because I am just back from the Long Island Doctor Who convention, where I was reminded yet again of the fact that, among other things, this podcast would not exist if it had not been for a Doctor Who convention. I'd had the idea already, but I hadn't done anything with it yet. And so I wanted to talk about how that happened, not so much in specific, but because I feel like it is one of the most powerful pieces of advice I could ever give to anyone. And it is so shockingly simple, but it's also something that a lot of people are really reluctant to do. And that is ask. Just ask. Ask the question. Ask someone to do something that you would really, really like to do. And frankly, that applies almost anywhere, right? Ask for the job, ask for the date, ask someone to be on a podcast that you haven't even given a name to yet, because they're there and you're having a great conversation, and why not? I realize that I'm making that sound kind of easy, and the fact is, it is pretty easy. But it can feel super, super daunting until you do it the first couple times. When I was talking to Rob Shearman in 2018 at the Regeneration Who convention in Baltimore, this is literally how it went. I mean, we were having a conversation. It suddenly dawned on me that he'd make a great podcast guest. Even though I hadn't even officially decided if I was going to do one yet, I didn't know what I was going to call it. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like. But I knew that that opportunity was there right then and there. And it might not ever come again. And that I had to ask. Among other things, I knew I had to ask because if I didn't, I would wonder for the rest of my life what would have happened, especially if the podcast had never really gone anywhere. As a side bonus, the fact that he said yes and we recorded that conversation before I left that weekend meant that I had an incentive to actually make the podcast happen, because now I had an interview recorded with someone who knew that I had an interview that was recorded. And so it was like, oh, gee, I guess I have to do something with this now. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't asked. The same thing happened 2 years ago with Paul McGann, the same kind of opportunity. And I ran with it for the same reason, because I'd be kicking myself right now if I hadn't. And I knew that that pain would be worse than finding the courage to go ask the question. And honestly, most people are pretty approachable if you approach them with the same thoughtfulness and respect that you would approach your best friend or somebody else. But it's all about asking. The worst thing that could have happened in either of those situations was that those people said no. And if that had happened, I'd have been disappointed, but I'd have had nothing worse, nothing less than I had before I asked the question. And a lot of the time, I think we get hung up on the idea that if I ask the question and they say no, it's just going to be the worst thing ever. Now, I know that rejection sensitivity dysphoria is a thing. And so for some people, it's especially difficult to deal with that kind of disappointment. But that rejection is not necessarily even about you. It's about somebody's schedule, how somebody feels about being interviewed in the first place, or, going to do whatever the thing is that you're proposing. It may not even be about you. But if you don't ask, you'll never get anything that you're hoping to get, because these people can't read your mind. And, opportunities will open up for you and you'll get better at it. It's much easier for me now than it was 3 years ago, almost 4, because I do it more often. And it doesn't always pan out. Sometimes people say yes, and then things happen and they kind of fall off the face of the earth. And, there are some people that I need to follow up with because it's been a while now and I would still like to talk to them. But, and they may not ever happen, and that's okay. But if you don't ask, as they say, you won't get. This may seem like a strange thing to be focusing on before a holiday, especially a holiday in the US that's supposed to be about giving thanks and being grateful. But I just could not get past the sense that if you don't ask for things, if you don't propose your ideas, you won't have as much to be grateful for. And also the level of growth and confidence that comes with learning how to ask and just being okay with it and knowing that, hey, maybe it didn't work this time, but you asked, which is a huge thing for most of us. And you deserve a massive pat on the back for having the courage to do it. That's worth it. That is something that makes your life so much better. So even though I'm aware that focusing on asking for things that you want before a holiday about gratitude might seem to be kind of the wrong vibe, that's why I wanted to talk about it today and wanted to put the idea out there. It is such a simple thing. It is an easy thing to do once we get out of our own way. And sometimes the only way to learn how to get out of your own way is to just make yourself do it, which I realize is not the gentlest thing in the world. I talk about things like small steps all the time. Sometimes it feels like a really, really, really big step. But if you start with, people who are close to you and start with small things, you can work your way up to the big things. And then when you are in a situation where you're talking to someone like Rob Shearman and you want to ask a question, it'll be so much easier and you'll accomplish so much more, whether it's a creative goal or a business goal or a friendship goal, than you ever would have otherwise. And you deserve that. And so does everybody around you, because everybody wins in a situation like that. Everybody gains something from that experience one way or another, somewhere along the line. So while you're focusing quite rightly on Thanksgiving, if you're in the US, and you may be focusing on gratitude, even if you're not in the US this week, and Lord knows it's something we should do way more than just one Thursday out of every year, no matter where we are. Think about the things that would make your life better. Think about how you can ask for help with them. Do it in small steps if that's what you need to do to get used to the idea. But please do them, because you deserve to have those experiences. You deserve to build up the confidence that comes with it. And you deserve to have a fantastic life, creatively and otherwise. So I hope that you'll take that to heart. I know it's harder for some people to do than others, and for some people it's really, really, really hard. But the more you can do it, even just in tiny pieces, the more you'll see how much it improves your quality of life and your sense of yourself. And that's a win for everybody. So have a great holiday if you are celebrating in the US this weekend. Have a great week, whether you're celebrating or not. I will be back next week with a more, I wouldn't say this is an unusual pep talk, but, the usual kind. And then we'll get our last new interview in for the year, or maybe. Yeah, that's right. I've got the schedule right in my head, I think. We'll see. So enjoy, ask, and I'll see you next time. You can find show notes, the 6 creative beliefs that are screwing you up, and more at fycuriosity.com. I'd also love for you to join the conversation on Instagram. You'll find me at fycuriosity. Follow Your Curiosity is produced by me, Nancy Norbeck, with music by Joseph McDade. If you like Follow Your Curiosity, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends. It really helps me reach new listeners. See you next time.